Ranking all these SEC super teams in recent memory. Number one team is 2019 LSU. Next question.
I think they have the most memorable players, traditions,
It's not even
and even
close.
some
Is that Lil Lad? Is that Lil Lad? That's Lil Lad. That's Lil Lad. I'm sorry.
teams in college football history. But in the last 10 years,
No.
there have been some iconic SEC teams, and today we're actually
Yeah. So I was gonna do it today, but I started the stream late. Tomorrow we're gonna do the cop show. If that's cool, if it's not cool, then I got a secondary show. If that ain't cool, I got a third show.
to talk about that. We're going to go through and talk about the top 10 SEC super teams in recent memory.
Appreciate it for
I'm going
that.
to rank them
Now
from
hold it
10 to
down.
1. I'm sure many of you guys will disagree with it. So be
Hey, what happened to Hendon Hooker?
sure to let me know your thoughts down below, as I don't think there's particularly a right or wrong answer here, but I definitely want to know your thoughts. And if there's a
that
team I
bald
left
nigga in
off, be
Tennessee.
sure to also correct me down below.
He only said that about LSU because they don't like any team that I like.
But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college
Especially
football,
if they won
be sure to
something.
subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video.
I knew he was
Let me
in
know what
Detroit.
player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and rank recent SEC super teams. Okay, so at number 10, we're going to have 2022 Tennessee. They're by
It was
far the
good,
most
too.
least impressive team on this list, but still deserve a spot because of how much hype they had, and that's the 2022 Tennessee Volunteers in a nutshell. They had the best offense in the country, scoring 46.1 points per game, and they also allowed 22.8 points per game on
Good God.
defense. They won 11-2 with a loss to number 1 Georgia, and a really confusing loss to South Carolina, 63-38. But as we all know, Hendon Hooker was hurt in that game, but it was already out of hand before that. The Vols would finish the year ranked number 6 in the country and barely missed out on making the playoffs since they didn't make the SEC title game. Hendon Hooker averaged a first down every time he threw the ball, throwing for 3,125 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Jalen Hyatt at receiver led the conference with 1,300
Bro, the jersey with the pockets is so elite, and I need them to drop them ASAP. I just don't think they will.
yards and 15 touchdowns. Jalen Wright ran for 875 yards and 10 touchdowns, and Jabari Small also had 13 more. The
Matter of fact, I know they won't.
defense was more of a weak spot, with the team only having 31 total sacks and 11 picks. It really was a disappointing season for them in hindsight because of that one loss to South
My only problem with these videos sometimes is these dudes have no enthusiasm with their voice.
Carolina, but their offense was one of the best in SEC history, and that Alabama-Tennessee game that I went to back in 2022 will be the most impressive and insane game I've ever been to. I don't know if anything's ever going to beat it.
The LSU Bama game where we won in overtime easily beats it.
So at number 9, we're going to have 2024 Texas. In Texas's first season in the SEC from
Really? Oh, it says in recent memory.
the Big 12, it was a success. They only finished the year at 13-3 and lost the SEC title game to number 5 Georgia, but I thought the Longhorns had a better season than the 11-3 Bulldogs did. Texas had the 29th best offense, scoring 33 points per game, and the 3rd best defense, allowing just 15.3 points per game, with the 7th most difficult strength of schedule
It's just Quinn Ewers is Quinn Ewers.
in the nation. They went 7-1 in
I was
the
gonna
SEC
say they didn't really play nobody crazy.
during the
And I know it says they played in SEC, but they didn't let me look at their schedule. I could have sworn they didn't play no real like comp until like the playoffs and shit. This is their schedule last year. Alamo Bowl. This was it. Okay, so yeah, no, 23, 24. Colorado State, Michigan is not good this year. UTSA, LA Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Georgia, they lost to, Vandy, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M, lost to Georgia again. They didn't play nobody this year. I just realized that. And then they lost to Ohio State. They lost to all the 3 teams that were good. A&M is decent, but nothing crazy. When I say comp, I mean like even like Arizona State, that's comp. Florida, not comp. Mississippi State, not comp. UTSA, not comp. Monroe, not comp. And like they only scored 17 against A&M.
regular season, with their only losses coming to Georgia twice, and then to the eventual national champions
Ohio State was comp.
State. Quinn Ewers threw for 3,500 yards with 31 touchdowns and 12 picks, which led the SEC. Wisner and Jaden Blue accounted for over 1,700 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns, and then Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond accounted for nearly 2,000 receiving yards and 16 touchdowns through the air. On defense, Texas finished with 46 total sacks, 22 interceptions.
I meant to say Iowa State or Arizona State. I'm sorry.
And both Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba ended up leading the SEC in interceptions with 5 each, and Anthony Hill led the conference with 17 TFLs. And number 8, we have 2023 Georgia. The Bulldogs did not win the title then, but they went a perfect undefeated in the regular season and looked like they were going to win their
Well, I thought that was Bijan.
3rd straight title before they lost to number 8 Bama in the SEC title game and were nudged out of the 14 playoff, settling for beating Florida State 63-3 in the Orange Bowl. But they were still a very talented football team, as they had the 5th best offense in the country, scoring over 40 points per game, and the 5th best defense, allowing just 15.6 points per game. They replaced Stetson Bennett with Carson Beck at quarterback.
Hey man, look at Lil Lane. Lil Lane. I can't wait for football. I cannot wait for football season.
Who threw for nearly 4,000 yards and 24 touchdowns. And then Brock Bowers led the team in receiving yards with over 706 touchdowns. And then Dom Lovett, Ladd McConkey, and
706 touchdowns.
Receiving yards with over 706 touchdowns.
Who? Who the fuck had 700 touchdowns?
And then Don Stetson Bennett with Carson Beck at quarterback, who threw for nearly 4,000 yards and 24 touchdowns. And then Brock
Okay, 24 touchdowns.
Bowers led the team in receiving yards with over 706 touchdowns. And then Dom Lovett, Ladd McConkey,
I think he meant yards, okay.
and Marcus Rose-May-Jack Saint helped create one of the deeper receiving rooms in the country at the time. Again, the defense was the strength of the Georgia machine, though.
If you had 706 touchdowns, you ain't even got to be in the draft. You going number 1. Heisman is already your nigga. That is like 25 touchdowns a game.
As they totaled 30 sacks and 14 picks, with guys like
that might be like 50.
Jalen Walker, Tyke Smith, and Smail Munden captaining the defense that was really good. Number 7, we have 2023 Alabama. Nick Saban's final team at Bama went 12.
Boy, that receiving room, Jesus.
12-2, made the playoff and lost to Michigan in the Rose Bowl 20-27. So why are they on this list? Well, because they were the team that blocked Georgia from making the playoffs in 2023, and they were the team that ended that mini dynasty that the Dogs were building. They scored 34 points per game and allowed 19 per game, which was outside the top 15 in both metrics, but they won when it mattered. Their only loss in the season other than the Rose Bowl was to number 11 Texas, and that was a revenge game that they lost 34-24, and Texas moved to the SEC a year later. On offense, they are led by Jalen Milroe, who was taking over for Bryce Young. In a learning year, he still threw for 2,900 yards with 23 touchdowns, and also ran for 5.
Why are you showing a picture of Waddle? Waddle was drafted in 22, right? Or 21? Oh, that's Isaiah Bond.
531 yards and 12 scores on the ground, to go alongside Jason McClellan's 900 yards and 8 touchdowns at running back. Jermaine Burton led the team through the air with over 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, and then Isaiah Bond was close behind with nearly 700 yards. On defense, true freshman Caleb Downs had 70 tackles, and Dallas Turner had 10 sacks, and Terrion Arnold had 5 picks. They were pretty solid for Coach Saban's last hurrah. I think they could have been a lot better, and to me they overachieved a little bit, but they won when it mattered. At number 6, we have 2015 Alabama. It's been a while, but the 2015
I forgot how dominant Bama was.
Crimson Tide were one of the teams that solidified
shit wasn't even fun to watch for a little minute. I forgot about that.
How good of a dynasty Nick Saban was able to build. With his offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin and defensive coordinator Kirby Smart, Saban's 2015 Tide scored 35.1 points per game and allowed just 15. They went 14-1 with their only loss coming in number 15 Ole Miss, and that was only by 6 points. Their 45-40 victory over Clemson in the national championship game helped kickstart a 3-year arms race between Bama and Clemson that was one of the most entertaining brief
this shit was hell for everybody else.
Rivalries in college sports. But what puts them on the list is the amount of star talent they had, while their
this shit was hell for everybody else.
Quarterback Jake Coker didn't do much. Derrick Henry had over 2,200 yards and 28 touchdowns and helped him become one of the best backs in the NFL. That running back room also had Kenyon Drake, Damian Harris, and Bo Scarborough, and then both Calvin Ridley and O.J. Howard led the receiving room with nearly 1,600 yards between the two of them. On defense, they had Reggie Ragland, Jaron Reed, Reuben Foster, A'Shawn Robinson, Marlon Humphrey, Eddie Jackson, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jonathan Allen, and Deshaun Hand, and they had one of the most dominant defenses in recent memory. man, Bama was loaded.
I agree with you, Ken. I hated Bama. I mean,
Okay, so before we get to the second half of the video, be sure to let me know which topic I should cover in my next season. I do think Georgia's 2021 season was one of the best in SEC history. They went 14-1 with their only loss coming to Alabama in the SEC championship game, who they beat a few weeks later to win the national title. I was at that game. After starting off slow with a 10-3 win over number 3 Clemson, Georgia's offense would blow up to be the 9th best in the country, averaging nearly 39 points per game. Stetson Bennett was as good as he needed to be, throwing
Hey man, where LSU at?
for 2,900 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 7 picks, while Zamir White and James Cook totaled nearly 1,600 yards between the two of them. Their leading receiver was Brock Bowers at tight end, who had just over 800 yards and 13 touchdowns. But their strength was on defense. They allowed just 10.2 points per game, shutting down every team they played. Their defensive line had guys like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, and Trayvon Walker, who went first overall to the Jags. They also had Nakobe Dean, Keely Ringo, Lewis Sine, and they were one of the best and scariest defenses in college football history. So at number 4, we have 2017 Alabama.
Hey!
The Crimson Tide from that year are one of the most forgotten powerhouses in college football history because of LSU's dominance a couple of years ago. The team went 13-1, with their only loss coming to Auburn and Jordan Hare, 26-14. Other than that, all they did was win. They had the 15th best scoring offense and the number 1 defense in the country, allowing just under 12 points per game.
At all.
They beat Clemson in the semifinal 24-6 and slipped past Georgia 26-23 for the national championship. Historically, it was Nick Saban's best defense he ever coached, as they had players like Rashawn Evans, Ronnie Harrison, and Minka Fitzpatrick, and that helped Bama crush teams on defense. And then guys like Raekwon Davis had 8.5 sacks, Mack Wilson had the most interceptions with 4, Levi Wallace had 15 pass deflections, and then on offense, Jalen Hurts was the quarterback,
Hurts
his
was in
spot to
college
2 in the title game.
5 years or 6 years.
Damian Harris
He played for 2 different schools, correct? He played for Bama and
over 1,000 yards. Calvin Ridley was a star receiver, and then guys like Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs were also making their way up there. That team was scary, and the ending to that national championship was historic. At number 3, we have 2022 Georgia. Georgia had a brief moment as one of the most dominant dynasties in college sports, winning back-to-back national titles in 2021 and 2022, but I think their 2022 team was stronger than their 2021 team. They finished with the 5th best scoring offense in the country, scoring 41.1 points per game, and they also had a top 5 defense, allowing just 14.3 points per game. It's a little bit overshadowed by their 65-7 destruction of TCU, which was the worst national championship game of all time. But Georgia's 42-41 win over Ohio State was one of the most memorable games in modern college football history. This was Kirby's 2nd national championship, and it was led by Stetson Bennett at quarterback, who ended up having over 4,200 yards and 27 touchdowns, as well as 10 rushing scores. Kenny McIntosh led a good running back room with just under 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Both Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey combined for over 1,700 yards, and on the defensive side of the ball, Georgia had 35 sacks, 12 interceptions, and 780 total tackles. At number 2, we have the 2020 Crimson Tide. The pandemic was a hard year for a lot of teams, but not the 2020 Alabama Crimson Tide under Nick Saban. They finished the year at 13-0 and won the national title over Ohio State 52-24 in a game that wasn't close. Like another team that we're going to mention later, they dominated on the offensive side of the ball with the 2nd best offense in the country, scoring 48.5 points per game, but they were also good on defense, allowing just 19 points per game, as well as the 13th best defense in the country. On offense, they are led by Mac Jones, who led the country in passing yards with 4,500, and he also threw for 41 touchdowns. But they also had Brian Robinson and Najee Harris at running back, and wide receiver
You know the team you're about to say, right?
Devontae Smith won the Heisman, and this included a league-leading 1,900 receiving yards and 23 touchdowns. On defense, the Tide were led by Dylan Moses, Christian Harris, Christian Barmore, and Will Anderson. This team was scary, and a lot of people kind of forget about them, to be honest.
I feel like he already said to me. I done got the years mixed up. He done said like 4 Bama teams.
So yeah, number 1 was never going to be disputed, as it was always going to be 2019 LSU. You probably knew this team was going to take the top of the list, as the 2019 LSU Tigers were such a special team in a lot of ways, and it's kind of interesting how good they were with a head coach in Ed O, who really wasn't anything special. But it was all about the players they had, specifically on offense. Joe Burrow at quarterback led an offense that scored over 48 points per game, and he threw for 5,600 yards, 60 touchdowns, and 6 picks to receivers like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Terrace Marshall, while Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for over 1,400 yards. They were also insane on defense, allowing just 21.9 points per game, and they were the 32nd best scoring defense in the country. Here's a list of some of the defensive players they had: Patrick Queen, Grant Delpit, Clevon Chasen, Derek Stingley, and Christian Fulton.
Man, this was a crazy team. This is a crazy team.
But the tackle leader on the team was actually Jacob Phillips, who had 113 total tackles for the Tigers. They proved early on they were one of the best teams in the country by winning a shootout against Texas in Week 2, 45-38, but they were also good at winning other shootouts, like against number 9 Auburn, 23-20, and then number 2 Bama, 46-41. LSU was special that year, and most of these guys have gone on to have decent careers in the NFL. I'm sure you guys have some disagreements down below. Where would you rank your teams? Is there a team that was misranked? Is there a team that you thought should have been on the list? And what other style, topic, or video should I do next?